This video is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a lecturer, it's just a thought. Okay, so recently, Mehdi Hassan, you guys know who he is, right? I might butcher this, but he goes by Professor Jiang on the internet. I'm gonna make a few connections, I'm gonna tie it together at the end, and I wanna see what you guys think because I'm seeing a pattern here, it's kind of interesting, and I can't share this on TikTok, so here's another one for you. So Mehdi, the guy interviewing him, he was like pressing him, this professor. He was like, how did you get behind the firewall of China to go and make these predictions? And of those predictions that this professor made, you know, regarding Iran, Trump getting reelected, they did come true. But I noticed a lot of people were kind of grilling Mehdi because he was going too hard. Now, you know, his delivery, the way he was kind of like, doing that condescending laugh, is one thing, but I think the questions he was asking him were pretty reasonable actually, because he was like, how did you get through that? How did you, because now you're talking to us as an audience, don't you fear the backlash of the Chinese Communist Party back in your country? Because you're speaking directly from there, even though he was, you know, educated in the West, in Canada, and I think he also went to Yale, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, he was grilling him and people were just like, what the hell's going on? This guy's smart, he's smarter than you, he's made predictions that came true and all that. So the professor went on to say, you know, maybe I'm a useful idiot and maybe people are looking at this and maybe there are certain enemies that would benefit from me making these predictions. Also, I'm not speaking to the Chinese people, I'm speaking to the Western audience. And I'm also not a professor, I'm actually a high school teacher. I just go by the name Professor online, and he said he had no idea he was going to blow up, and eventually it just did. And so this back and forth goes on and on and on. And then something came to mind. I want to bring something up here because it actually ties back to China. Hold that thought with this professor making all these predictions, because back in the 2000s, there was an economist from China who made his way to the US, and he created this formula that would forever change Wall Street. Again, this is a snippet. Please buy this book so you understand it in its full context, but I did want to mention something. Here, I'm going to quote on page 26. So think back to 2006, 2007. Some of you are old enough to remember. I quote, "In other words, the effect of Dr. Lee's formula was to abandon the focus on the relative strength and risk of each component, since they were now interlocked via the cupola itself, and this in turn led to an explosion of more and more bundles of securities and credit swaps of bundles as a result of this increasing interlock and correlation." Again, I quote, "At the end of 2001, there was 920 billion in credit default swaps outstanding. By the end of 2007, the number had skyrocketed to more than 62 trillion. The CDO market, which stood at 275 billion in 2000, grew to 4.7 trillion by 2006. At the heart of it all was Lee's formula." Now, who was Dr. Lee? You can read about him extensively here. Was a Quebec educated economist, and he even landed a gig at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce and eventually moved to Barclays Capital in 2004. Okay, so this guy just shows up out of the blue, right? And he comes up with this formula that basically was the catalyst to crashing our fucking market here in the United States. Again, think back, 2006, 2007, and then 2008, the aftermath. Now, I know it seems like I'm racially profiling here, which is not my intention. It's just, I do see something that, I don't know, feels off to me, because going back to Professor Jiang, when I first saw him pop up in the scene, I was like, okay, he has a lot of interesting things to say. Also, Tucker Carlson was interviewing him, which I don't really trust Tucker. I don't trust anybody, but I'm gonna put that out there. But I watch everyone's content regardless. Doesn't mean I have to trust them. We're not into worshiping here. But I thought it was interesting. I was like, okay, he has a lot to say. A lot of it's valid. I'm not gonna write that off. However, his rise is suspicious. Now, I don't know if these two correlate at all. This author does talk about how that economist, okay, who came up with this formula that Wall Street just hopped on, and real quick too, and then later that turned into a disaster. That guy, he came from an ancient line of bankers in China. Again, he goes into this in detail. So once the crash happened, they were actually trying to locate this guy, and come to find out he was just back in China and dealing with matters over there. He was working in the government there. They couldn't track him down because he was back home before you knew it. This author implies that that crash that took place, with 2008 and all that, was a financial hit on our country. Now, I know I'm not explaining this eloquently because, again, I'm kind of dumb, you guys, but I get the gist of it. And this is why I say read this book so that we can have conversations, because I need to learn from other people too. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not into physics. I'm just kind of curious. I notice certain patterns sometimes, like this rise of this professor, and then seeing people kind of grill Mehdi. I'm not the biggest fan of Mehdi myself. I don't hate him. I don't, there's certain things that he said in the past that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't hate him. I'm just whatever about him. I think he's another talking head in the media. But I do think that he raised some interesting questions to this guy, and he's getting grilled for it. And again, it could be his delivery, but I think it's very healthy to question people when they rise that quickly, making these types of predictions. And specifically, this guy's predictions were correct all along. So I don't know. Are we getting set up again? I'm not quite sure. I don't know. It's good not to trust everybody, including those asking the tough questions. Tucker had him on his show too. But Tucker's son also works for Vance. And Vance is tied to Teal, and I'm not going to get into that. I've already been recording for a while. But so I guess my question is, do you guys also notice that that's kind of a strange rise to claim here, all of a sudden? And also, do you feel that it is reasonable to ask him how this guy in China, teaching within the confines of China, he's going out spreading all this information, all these predictions, which of some did come true. How did he spread so quickly? And spread from all places, China, which we know they're gridlocked when it comes to the way information is being spread. Now, again, his reasoning for this was, I'm not speaking to the Chinese people. I'm speaking to my students and addressing the West. I'm paraphrasing here, but there's some correlations. He too was also educated in the West. I can see some similarities with the guy who came to fuck shit up in Wall Street, and he wound up back in China. I don't know, times are weird, you guys, but again, thanks for watching this. I know my explanation, the way I delivered this was trash and fucking messy, but maybe some of you have read this book, know what the fuck I'm talking about, and can see what I'm trying to say here, because I'm not great at explaining things. I'm an artist, what do I know? But something's weird. Something feels off here about this professor to me, and it has nothing to do with him being Chinese. Well, it kind of does have something to do with him being Chinese, but not in that sense, not in the, I'm just trying to poke fun at Chinese people just to poke fun. It has nothing to do with that. It's the war on information and the financial hit that we have taken in the past because of this. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say is maybe we can, I don't know, do you guys also feel like we should kind of be cautious? Because I see a lot of praise for this professor or high school teacher, whatever he is, online, and I see it both on the right and the left. They're attacking those who are well, hey, it's normal to ask this guy questions, because that is kind of a little fishy in some aspects. And yeah, people are getting attacked for saying that. But given our own history here and how we were affected by such information being spread, what's going on? No, I think there's some witchcraft attached to this. I don't know. I hope this made sense. Let me know what you guys think. If you've read this book, what do you think? And maybe you can explain, or make a video, better yet. Make a video or explain it better in the comments. But if you know what I'm talking about, drop a comment.